Success is a Silent Protest, hosted by Sharondeep Kaur with Tanya Loretta Dee, Denai Moore, and Yero Timi-Biu and Cynthia Lawrence John. I don't have an auto cue, so apologies for that. Sharondeep talks to these four incredible women. I love these women about their lives and careers and the realities of self-promotion and finding inspiration from people who are successful without having to always shout about it. In an age of phone addiction and lockdown, we can spend a whole day on social media. It's true. We can do that, right? Oh, such a dirty habit, but it's true. The doom scroll is very real, and we have to be careful about what we put into our lovely minds. What are we doing? Like, why are we doing all of this? Why are we so obsessed, and why is it taking over our lives like this? I think that we need to talk about this frankly, honestly, openly, and actually just talk rather than always type. An emoji isn't necessarily how we actually feel right here. So I'm really, really glad that we've got Yero, Cynthia, Denai, Tanya, and Sharondeep here to help us navigate this. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Gemma. Hi, my name's Sharondeep, and I will be your host for today's panel talk on Success is a Silent Protest. This talk is part of the 2021 POW Festival Thanet. POW, Power of Women. And by no further ado, I'd like to introduce, well, let them introduce themselves, four powerhouse of women. So we'll do a quick nip around, and all these beautiful women can tell you who they are and what it is they do.
Thanks, Sharondeep. That was an amazing introduction. Hello, I'm Tanya. I am an actor, a writer, and a facilitator.
Hi, I'm Yero. I'm a writer, director for TV and film. I also do lots of audio stuff too, based in Margate.
Hi, my name's Cynthia Lawrence John. I'm a costume designer, stylist, and also co-owner of Workhouse Margate store in Margate.
Hi, I'm Denai Moore. I'm an artist, singer-songwriter, and also a chef.
Thank you, ladies. So firstly, let's just dive into our chat today about the general vibe and our relationship towards social media. It's a huge cultural phenomenon. It's something which we're all aware of and we all use, whether that's our private life, that's our trials and tribulations, that's our truth, that's our edited truth. And for a lot of us, it's the way that we share our careers. So if someone just wants to put their hand up during this chat, if they've got something to say, we can unmute you. What's the general vibe, people? What's the vibe? Anyone want to go jump in? Love-hate relationship?
I think social media to me is a tool. And I think we've headed in a bit of a dangerous territory where I feel like we're putting so much weight on social media as itself, as this and making it seem something that it really isn't, if that makes sense. I think in a sense, social media acts as a mirror, and it can showcase a lot of things that exist already in our physical space, and issues that already exist in society can just be exacerbated and kind of amplified on a higher level. But to me, I try and think about it as the fact that it is a tool that I use to communicate messages or showcase parts of myself that I think, work alongside things that I'm doing, or communicates what, projects I'm doing and ideas that I have and ways I can communicate with people. But yeah, I think that way I kind of don't think of it as this super negative space, and I think of it as a tool, basically, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, completely. I think looking at it like that, it's a tool. So ultimately, tools are used to help you on your journey in some sense. So it's still your journey, but it's a useful thing. Cynthia, do you want to say something?
I'd say I definitely have a love-hate relationship with it, and I always call it the gospel according to Instagram, or the gospel according to social media, because so often people believe exactly what they see on there. And I have a friend or several friends who often say that just because something's not on social media doesn't mean they're not doing anything, doesn't mean they're not achieving anything. And very often I find it really sad when I'm mentoring, particularly women of a certain generation who seem to think they've been left behind because they're not doing what A, B, C, D, E, F, G are doing. And I always just say to them, look, just stay in your lane. Do you see an athlete, a elite premier athlete who's looking from side to side constantly to see what everyone else is doing? No, you've just got to have your eye on your game and what you're doing.
Can we just touch on the thing as well? I mean, obviously you guys are, very successful in your own industries and in your own fields. What would you say to maybe, younger people who are looking for this as a means to validate the career, as opposed to someone like Denai who's already self-validated and she's just using it as a tool? What would you kind of say? Is this a safe place to have that, or do people think that they need, you need to have boundaries with the kind of content you are putting out there when it comes to sharing your career and your ideas? Yeah, Yero?
So that's a great question. For me personally, even when I think of social media, I'm just like, it's just a part of everyday life. It's something that, I got my first MSN email address at 9. It's just part of life, whether that's catching up with friends, checking up on people, and also that thing that a lot of us do, the coveting of other people's lives. And in lockdown especially, it's really huge. I mentor quite a lot of people who are super desperate to get like a show on Netflix, to be doing all these really cool things, and they want to do it really quickly. And to echo you, Cynthia, that stay in your lane thing is something I always say, and I always add to, like, focus on your own driving and don't look in anyone else's lane, because it's super, super tempting to, I don't want to say overshare because I don't want to police anyone's, like, how people use social media. But for me personally in TV, I have 8 active projects in development for TV. There's stuff that I legally can say and can't say because I've been contracted to. It's really exciting to want to share what you're up to and, like, to get that validation from friends and to let people know that, like, hi, I might not be around a lot because I'm working on this project, but actually, what really does that give me, apart from a couple of likes and people sharing it? I still have to do all of that work. So I think for me, I really, really, I think I need social media for my job. Quite a lot of opportunities are posted online. One of my favorite directors, Gorinda Chadha, Did It Like Beckham, Anger Songs and Perfect Stogging, she posted that she's looking for screenwriters. And she's like, DM me if you're interested in writing this. And her DMs weren't open. So she had like hundreds of people who were like my age in their late 20s, and they're like, I really want to write for this. But because I have an agent, I was able to message my agent and be like, can you please sort this out because of this tweet? And I'm in a position to do that. And she made an accessible thing. So maybe some people who don't have agents will be able to apply for this job. So I think when we talk about social media, there's definitely like I'm posting the sourdough bread I'm making in lockdown, and then the outreach for work, and also like connecting with other people, casting and stuff like that. So I feel like there are the two worlds that sometimes merge with us as creative women.
Yeah, I think there's definitely we're starting to sort of make this separation, I think, so far, of like, the private life and things that are actually reflective of you, and then all the sort of work stuff. The thing is let's get real, like, we're all a bit addicted to it. This thing that's in human nature. I think if you look back in history, people would join in masses to see a public hanging because of this, like, right, we're putting it on a public pedestal and we're all going to watch it and shake. And that's sort of like the history stem of this thing within human behaviour of wanting to be a judgmental spectator. And then you see it on things like X Factor, and everyone we want to put this thing that we don't really understand the weight of it, or the perceptive of the journey or the history of it, and we kind of want to put it onto a public pedestal. And like you said, with with work, the amount of work and time and effort it would go into making a music track or a play, to then put it in this public sphere, ready for sort of persecution, here, sort of, do you know what I mean? Like, why do we kind of do that? And also, we we're validating sort of faceless profiles of people that don't understand the context of this sort of body of work. But then, like you're saying, also people who do understand it, and for people who don't have agents, it's a great place to put your work out, and you kind of have to put it out to everybody. You can't just put it to your agent sometimes. Tanya, what do you think about what your relationship is with social media and how you put your work out?
Yeah, so for me, my journey with social media is quite significant. It was so when I decided to go back into acting, so I had a small gap for about 7 years. One of the first things that I did was go onto Twitter and learn that way who was out there, what directors there were, what writing was going on, what plays there are. And the great thing was that I was able, which I wasn't able to do before, directly connect with directors, with writers, with playwrights. So for me, I had a significant journey when I saw a play that had already been cast, and the flyer was out, and it was for a play called Offside, which is written by Sabrina Mahfouz, and it's about the first British female black footballer. And it had already been cast, but I saw that flyer and I was like, I love poetry, I love Sabrina's work, I know this theatre company. If something happens where, that lead actress, something happens to her, God forbid it didn't, then I would love to be seen for that role. So I wrote to the company because I saw it on Twitter, and it just so happened that the person that was playing that lead role couldn't do that part. So I went for an audition, met the company. They asked how I found them, and the proactiveness of me being online and saying I was sort of rooting through Twitter and like seeing what opportunities there were, sort of pinged out to them. The audition went well, and I got that role. And because of that role, other things sort of stemmed from that. Like this was about 7 or 8 years ago. So since then, I think what my brain has done has also become quite, when we're talking about addiction, thinking that that's the be all and end all. That Twitter and Instagram are the ways that we get opportunities, and the way that we have to share opportunities all the time. And only now am I starting to question that and think, do we have to do that? Do we have to invest in time? And I think at some point, yes, because me personally, I couldn't afford PR. I couldn't afford, to have someone shouting my name out. I had to do all that myself. And social media was such a good way to do that. It was free. It was accessible. I didn't have to move. So geographically, I could stay at home and do, lots of networking with people and online and look for opportunities. And now it's got to a point where I'm like, okay, so how best can I use my time? And is spending hours on social media, like having to promote myself or look for opportunities, useful and needed? There are so many successful artists that I see that don't have social media, and it's always a question for me, like how are they doing that? And I think as well, other people are PR agents, other companies, other artists. There'll always be someone sharing something we do, but I think at the beginning, as long as you've got good boundaries with yourself, it is addictive, like you say. The dopamine rush you get when you get a like is addictive. So you do have to set up boundaries. But I think it's such a useful way to connect, to collaborate, and find people that you want to work with and ways of working. It's just the number one thing for me is boundary setting, and like making sure that my mental health is the number one priority. And it could be such a pit for triggering, that's my responsibility as an artist to go, okay, I have to really be clear with those boundaries and know what's good for me and what to put away.
Yeah, I think it's something which everyone in some way, shape, or form has to kind of jump on board with. Most mums have got a Facebook account now because they're like, and they've all learned emojis, and it's this thing that even the mums are getting about. But it's interesting what you say, that some people actively are in the industry and very successful, and they choose not to do it. So this might come as a shock to anyone that can see us beautiful women, but some of us are actually over the age of 21 on here. So let's talk about what were we doing before social media, back in the Insta days of good old these things. If people aren't aware, we had things called newspapers, magazines, community business card, post boards, and stuff like that. So, obviously, Cynthia, you've had a really long running career. How did you used to promote yourself?
Well, being an old bird, so it's funny because I remember when I first started my career, it was back in the days when you literally had a portfolio. So you would have your print, you'd have a thick book of your print and your work, and you would physically take it around to see people and meet people, which sounds very old fashioned now, I know, but that's how it used to work. And also, I find these days on set, if you're, creating something, very often you'll have everyone taking pictures of the film that you're doing or just behind the scenes, and they're posting it straight away. So for me, I still find that kind of strange, because back in the day, and I'm talking like 25 years ago, you'd shoot a film or a story or something, and then you'd have to wait almost 3 months for it then to be published in a magazine. And then I think you got more joy out of it because you'd waited 3 months for this thing to be published, and then your name will be there in print. And the problem I find now is that we just swipe. Images are devoured way too quickly. People are not looking at images. So, you could have spent, weeks and months researching a particular story, and the photographer shot it, etc. And then it's literally just demoted to being a square on your phone, and people are just swiping through it, not really looking. So that's my experience. And also, I think it's really funny because also I've worked in music back in the day when MTV, the video you had shot would maybe be on 3 times a day, and you literally had to sit and watch MTV all day to see your work, because you wouldn't be sent that particular video by the production company. You'd have to sit there and wait for it to be on, and then you'd record it, and that's the only way you could actually watch your work. And I think back then it just made you more hungry, to be honest with you. It wasn't, I don't think the word instant's good in the world of media and fashion, or just in the creative industries at all. The other problem I have with Instagram, and I don't hate all of it, but the problem I have with it is that people take everything they see as the gospel. Let's take it as a gospel truth, and I think people don't research things enough. So very often you might see a trend or something appears on Instagram, and people won't then go and look and think, who is this artist? I want to know more about them. As far as they're concerned, they've seen it on that square and that's it. Next. And I think it doesn't allow ideas to percolate enough, or trends, or just thoughts to percolate enough. It's flicking through things too quickly.
I think as well, what do you think about once you do create this body of work and you put it out there to everybody, because it's a public profile? It's not like, you're making a music video and it goes out on a particular rock channel, and then basically if people like it back in the day, they'd buy a ticket to your gig, and you're just surrounded by people who like your work, and they're all part of the fun bus. You didn't have you wouldn't have any feedback that somebody who was on a different vibe to you. What do you think it maybe does to the work when now that we're putting it out and every Tom, Dick and Harry can have his instant sort of say on it? What do you feel about that? Or have you ever had any experience online where you perhaps have got a little bit shaky in terms of any of the feedback that you've got, because everybody's can have their say on it?
Do you know what's funny? There's one thing I don't do, and my friends will laugh at this. I'm not looking to, there's certain people I choose in my life who I trust them and I trust their opinions, but I'm not throwing things out there to seek the validation of other people. I'm not really, and it's not me being arrogant, but I just think if you live your life literally waiting to see what this person, that person's saying to you and what they're thinking about something, then you're not going to be a very happy person. You've got to trust yourself from within, and then have a group of people around you who can trust their opinions. But if I posted something and 1,000 people said they didn't like it or had a comment, if it was a valid reason, fair enough, but I'm not going to run into a bush and hide because a load of people said they don't like something I've created. Unless it really is SHIT, then I might listen, but
okay, so let's think about this way, because I don't know if it's called when we can all create our own content, we get to address world issues like never before and have this global platform to share things in a way we've never done before. Back in the days of newspapers, even BBC programs, they've all got they're heavily edited, they've all got agendas, they all have to be PC, blah 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 blah. Now you can have a smartphone, which everyone from here in Margate over to the slums in India has got some sort of Wi-Fi connection. So let's talk about this worldwide platform that social media does offer pretty much anyone a voice to share. Greta Thunberg and her word on climate change and the school strike Fridays, massive global movement, probably wouldn't have been such a wildfire without social media platforms. Black Lives Matter that happened last year. Anybody want to talk about this event that happened in recent history where millions and millions of people in different cities, just as one lone protester on their own, in the micro and the larger scales, sort of came together collectively and had this platform against racism. Things like this we've never seen before, and we just simply didn't have the platform before. So yeah.
So the one thing that sorry, and I will shut up in a minute. But the one thing that really annoys me about Instagram is the fact that you have so many armchair warriors. So you have so many people who think just because they've liked to post on anti-racism or anti-sexism or whatever, they think they've done something. And I think sometimes it fools people into thinking that they are activists and they've actually done something because they've commented on a post or they've liked a post or they've shared a post. Just because you've liked a post or shared something doesn't mean you've done anything about it. And I think that's the problem. I think sometimes Instagram and social media actually leads to complete apathy because you just sit on your ass and not actually get up and physically do something about an issue. All right.
Anybody else would like to say anything about yeah?
Firstly, I'd like to ask, I mean, it's rhetorical, we don't have to answer it, but like, what exactly is social media? Because when I think of social media, I think of WhatsApp groups, for example, the one that's in Margate for people of colour. And when I think of social media, I think of a collective of people, whether they are a mob of people that are going to watch Harry and Meghan talk to Oprah and live tweet and just annihilate this couple. Or again, audiences that will critique a trailer before the films even come out and like condemn it. But I will say, to go back to what we spoke about before about some people who are like super successful, whatever that means, but they don't use any social media. I would like to say as well, a lot of these people are very well connected. Either they have a really long established career, which is really great. And I always believe that success comes from, fingers crossed most of the time, talent and being at the right place at the right time. It also comes from a place of privilege of people that have been able to support you. So I'd just like to say that. And also for me as well, I think advocacy and social media go hand in hand. I think social media is also GoFundMe pages. When loads and loads of people were trying to do like community aid and mutual aid for people that even were arrested during protests, I think information and accessibility is through social media. And like there's a lot of academic stuff that comes from like the Black Lives Matter movement that I think we saw all of the digestible politics and black squares all of last summer. But I think I've been sent so many like reading lists, etc., and things like that. And even for me, I'm like such a huge advocate for healthcare equity, especially for like Black women. And I honestly think without like having other groups online to like be a part of, who were like, I've been going through this too, doctors don't believe me, I have no idea how I would be able to cope. So I think work-wise too, I've just released an Audible podcast that I worked on about that specific thing. So I'm able to share that with all of these people that have like worries that no one's really listening to them. And this was a podcast that was made in Margate, Deptford, London, and we interviewed people in like Washington, all of that. And I feel like I would not have been able to do that, and I would not have been able to share that with such a huge platform if I didn't have this medical person contact me and be like, do you want to get involved in this? So I think as well, if we're going to talk about social media, we should also talk about the advocacy for maybe underrepresented people or people that don't usually get their voice heard and aren't Stephen Fry with like millions of followers on Twitter. So that's my point.
Thank you, Yero.
Just to follow back on that point, like I think that's the key. I think someone like Issa Rae, who literally created this YouTube series called Awkward Black Girl, and then went on to make Insecure, which has now become such a phenomenon and such a success story. But she doesn't use social media as much anymore. But this is what I mean about the tool sense, because I do think like, if you continue to look at it as something that it really isn't, I think it can become quite dangerous, because I think it just highlights things that already exist in society. It highlights issues that are already here, and it brings it in a place that's just more visible. So that's why the whole Black Lives Matter thing, exploded, because all of these, people, would be killed by the police for like, God, how long has it been going on? But it's just more visible. It's just simply more visible. So it's an issue that's been, going on for so long in America, race, like it goes back for centuries, right? So social media just makes all of this more visible in a way that is quite like, you can't ignore it. And I think the reason why we're talking so much more about these issues is because it's literally, you can record it. You can be at a protest now, and like if someone's being harassed, you can record it. You can write a blog post and you can express everything live. And I think it's kind of like used in ways that can be quite like really brutal and actually dangerous. But I also think it can be quite powerful. And I think for my own well-being, I try and separate it and see it literally as a tool that I can, express things that I feel about, but also connect with people, or the opportunity to speak to lots of people. And, being a musician, making music, like it is kind of insane. But, I do get messages from people all over the world that somehow feel represented through the work that I do. And to me, that counts for something, and I think where there's like a massive red flag for me is that we are kind of taught in a way to seek self-validation outside of social media, before, when I going to secondary school or whatever, in life in general, you feel like you're made to feel like you have to fit in, or you have to like be like that girl that's getting the most attention or whatever. And I think those issues already existed before social media. And I think it's just made things more visible where, people's jobs are literally to be an influencer and to showcase these things and to be online. That makes a lot of people feel insecure. So it can be quite damaging in that sense. But I think the conversation needs to be had outside of social media, because at the end of the day, people go and live their lives outside of Instagram. So if something made you feel insecure, like I feel like you should take that issue up outside of the space of Instagram, as opposed to being like, Instagram's really damaging, when it's really just a lot of other societal issues that are making people feel insecure. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Like, you still got to do the work. For example, if you become aware of Black Lives Matter and you see a post of someone saying this is a really good book to read, it's like that should prompt you to go and get the book and read it and develop, and to develop your understanding, sort of thing. Really, really good points. I just remind any listeners out there that we have got a live chat up and running now. So if anybody does have any questions, I will get them if you want to ask these women something. Stemming on from that, can we all talk a little bit about well-being within Instagram and maybe healthy, positive boundaries that you all kind of put in place? For example, most people are attached to their phone like it's an umbilical cord, and it's just, the screen times are like full-time jobs. People's screen times are like 35 plus hours a week. And, if someone doesn't text you back, it ain't because their phone's there, it's because they're ignoring you, because everyone's phone's sort of there. So for me personally, I've got a dog. So when I take her for a walk, I never take the phone with me. And that's just because it just interrupts a walk. So that's something that I actively do. I know some people might not look at it for the first hour, etc., etc. What are some good positive boundaries that you guys have come into place, or have you had an experience where you've put no boundaries in and then you've just had enough and you're like, I'm coming off, and you've just sort of deleted your account for a bit? Tanya, do you want to maybe say any positive things that you, in terms of your relationship with your phone?
Yeah, kind of like you. So this is really funny. So my boyfriend bought a bed for my phone. Because I'm that person that used to wake up and like scroll and like look at it before bed. So now the rule is you put your phone to bed. It does not come in the room with me. It's
nice.
way. As far as social media is concerned, I have the relationship that I've had with it is been like this. It's like I love it, I hate it, I love it, I hate it, I love it, I hate it, and I think it's like what Denai said. Depending on where you are within yourself, is what it's going to mirror what's going on in your life. So if I'm feeling crap, generally I won't go on social media, because there'll always be something that's going to make me feel worse at some point. So that's a rule that I have. And change, just make sure that it's just not in the room. But likewise as well, the mute button is very good on Twitter and on Instagram, and also just sort of it's going to sound weird doing it, but yeah, I do tailor my social media so that I see what I want to see. Like I had a lot of healing in the last year because of lockdown has been hard for everyone, but my God, connecting with certain groups and women through social media gave me so much joy and communication and healing that I needed, and so I've tailored it in that way. So I think tailoring, just knowing when to put it away, and just checking in on yourself before you even pick up your phone. Like I ask the question every morning: how am I feeling today? How am I doing? Am I ready to take that energy on of somebody else? Because genuinely that's what will happen. So I think it starts before they even pick up the phone. That's my number one rule, I would say, is just really check in beforehand
with yourself. Cheers, Cynthia.
I totally agree with Tanya. I think just before you even pick it up and start scrolling, just check in with yourself and see how you're feeling that day. I just genuinely, I used to have this thing where I'd wake up at 2 a.m, because that's the time I woke up. And once you start scrolling, that's it. You may as well kiss goodbye to sleep for that evening. And I wasn't getting enough sleep. So that's generally my rule. I will not have it near my bed. I don't even have it in my room. It's just away from me. I think that's the main thing, I think.
Anybody else want to say anything about how they have such healthy boundaries? Yeah. Can we?
Sorry, it's saying that my internet's unstable. Good old I can't speak. Good old Margate. I think so, Tanya. Those Sunday sessions that you did last year were really great in terms of like using social media to like share other people's work, and also as like community. It just felt like taking the Sabbath, using social media like mindfully, without sounding too holistic. But I think for me, as like a creative person who works predominantly like for the screen, like everything is screen based. I think Instagram is so tricky because it's such a visual medium. I like get to see pictures of puppies. I get to see funny TikToks about politics. See that my friends have announced that they're having a baby rather than just texting people like in the olden days. And there's something about the bite-sized thing of like seeing things, even getting your news from Instagram. But I agree with the muting and also soft blocking people, which sounds so strange.
What's that?
So it's an old technique, but you can just, on Instagram now, you can like remove a follower. So something that I find really strange with this generation of social media user is like the hate following. So like I remember loads of people used to follow like Katie Hopkins, for example, before she was banned, just to be in the know of what the controversial things she had to say. And with soft blocking, if someone's following you and you don't want them to follow you and you don't want to follow them, you just block and unblock and you both unfollow each other. But now Instagram has this thing where you can actually remove followers, and I think that's like a safeguarding thing. And also for me, I've started, I have a Finsta. People who don't know what that is, that's like a friend Instagram. Because I'm so conscious that like March 2020, I put back soon in my Instagram bio. It's like, I've not gone anywhere. I'm like leaving it there so that I can force myself to like take a break. And it is this thing of like having to curate things, and like if I don't post anything in a couple of months, will my acquaintances who I don't bump into on a regular basis now in lockdown be like, where's Yero? But also trying to like separate my work from my personal life. And I had this conversation with my mum recently where I was like, I'm just going to use this Instagram account for my work to share like castings, to share trailers, pictures, etc. But I recently posted a tribute to my late friend. And I wanted to do that because so many of my friends, we've all just kind of, that's the medium that we've used to talk about the loss of this person. And with my Finsta, I hope to be able to just have that as a private place just to post silly things with my friends. And I've come to a decision that when my TV shows come out, I hope to have the level of privacy of Sally Rooney, who, as soon as her books came out, she's deleted all social media. She was just like invisible. She's like scrubbed herself off everywhere, because it's like this idea of being an Issa Rae, for example, who has her own production company, mass deals with HBO Max. She has a record label, she has a radio station. And I can't imagine she must have a huge team, but the content that you have to make. And I used to work in digital marketing and fashion PR ages ago, and planning your social media calendar like months in advance is just, I don't think it's fun. It feels like a lot of pressure. And I think what started off as a joy with social media, it then becomes work. And it then becomes, you start to feel a bit resentful of it. It's like, I've not posted in a week, I have to post something. And it's such a weird thing to say out loud, because like you don't actually have to post anything. But yeah.
I love that. Basically, become such a boss bitch that you've got a team of people running everything for you.
Basically.
Don't even touch your phone anymore. Just this. That's it. That's it. I mean, you know, I think when we're kind of having such a real talk about social media, it's something which, you know, it's there, but I think this talk is starting to highlight, you know, the point of seeing it for what it really is. It's not a place, especially for young people, to seek validation, because honey, the only place you're going to ever truly be validated is yourself. And I think that's something that's you know, which is sort of becoming a bit more clearer. So we're going to take a little question off the chat. So Angela's asked, she said, brilliant panel. That's from Angela. She would like to ask you all, who are your role models? And because we're talking about social media, I guess if any of you have a favourite account which you follow, you could maybe share that as well. So should we start with you, Tanya?
Oh God, there's so many. So many. I can't. This is hard. I always find this really hard. But you know what? I'm going to sound cheesy. Aside from obvious writers and things like that, I have a lot of friends that are my role models. And just because I'm linking it to social media, I feel very lucky that there are a lot of people that I'm following that I do look up to and feel like Yero, like I've looked at everyone's page on here, and everyone I'm inspired by something on there. So yeah, a lot of my friends, I know it sounds cheesy, but it's very true. I think I'm lucky to have a lot of people around me that want to thrive and want to enjoy, and I'm always inspired by that, like really close to home friends that are doing that. So yeah. Sorry, I can't be more specific than that.
All right.
Yeah, do you want to share with us your role models?
Do you know what? It's really weird. They probably changed. So I'm going to go back way back to when I was probably around 16, 17, 18, because I think that's when you really need role models in your life. So my role models, I'd say, were women like Nana Cherry and Andy Oliver, women who were just Black women who were just not doing what they were supposed to be doing, if that makes sense. They were into music that you weren't supposed to be into. And I think when I was just trying to find myself around that age, 15, 16, those are women I looked to because they were breaking rules and they were just rewriting the rule book themselves. And I think even now, as a year-old woman, I do find that I still look at even people who are younger than me. I look and think, actually, do you know what? You're doing something that's outside the box. You're doing something that you enjoy. You're doing your own thing. So it's not always somebody who's older than me. Sometimes look at people who are younger than me and think, do you know what? You're killing it. So no names in particular, apart from those two women, I'll say.
Thank you. Yero, do you want to go next?
I was just writing down all of my role models. I want to be as earnest as you, Tanya, and be like, yeah, my friends too. But it's actually true. Those are the people that are like on my feed a lot of the time, and that's how I'm connecting with them. I've written a few because I'm a bit greedy. Firstly, I've put Camilla Blackett, who is a British screenwriter who lives out in LA, and she's just really funny and really fine and okay about sharing all of the work that she's doing and sharing opportunities and sharing information about vaccines and talking about politics and doing like self-care kind of tips for people who are really overwhelmed with a lot of the work they're doing, because there's this thing of, you know, always being busy. Like, that's a great thing, right? Rest is for losers. And I mean, it's not, by the way. So she's really good at it in terms of just reminding people to just like take it easy a bit. Another person I would say is Roxane Gay, because she screws up so much online and she says a lot of things that she always regrets, but she always apologizes. No matter how much she gets dragged, she's always like, my bad, I'm really sorry about that, I've learned. And then she just moves on. And then lastly, Natasha Rothwell, who is an actor and writer. She's one of the writer-producers on Insecure. She's so funny and really talented. And every day, I think it was for about 2 years, she tweeted at Trump to just like mean stuff. And she remained consistent in it. And it made me laugh quite a lot because I think, I noticed I've said like 3 Black women who are like in America. I definitely think there's a lot of, it seems to be like a bit lighthearted over there. Over here, it's just like, in the UK, I don't know where people are watching from, but it's like, especially if you're a Black woman tweeting or active on social media, it's usually because you're kind of going to be asked by a broadcaster like to come on and like talk about a specific issue. And going back to what you were saying, Cynthia, about like Andy and Nana Cherry, like to have like, to look up to like 2 women who are friends who are just doing really cool things and have done really cool things like their whole careers and have, you know, opened restaurants and like have shows and all of these things that are like rooted in stuff that they really, really care about and stuff that they've not kind of left. I think it's hard to have a long and prosperous career over here in the UK. And it's really cool to be able to see that.
Denai?
Yeah, I would say similarly, a lot of my friends. I feel like I follow a lot of artists and songwriters, and I really appreciate, you know, people sharing their process, but in a very like human-like way. Because I remembered, funnily enough, when I just got signed and I was kind of dealing with a lot of these issues, and I felt really insecure about not writing as much as everyone, and like you get people being like, oh, I've written like 50 songs this week, and it'll be like, whoa, like I haven't even done one or whatever. I kind of really appreciate a lot of my friends who are songwriters that kind of like just post in a very like human way, as opposed to like maintaining this, I don't know, very unrealistic lifestyle. And for that reason, I love, she's not a songwriter, but I'd say probably my favorite Instagram account is Tracy Ellis Ross. I don't know if you follow her, but she's really funny, but she's really lighthearted, and like, she's not too serious about herself. And it's not really like, I don't know, every post is like really, you know, crazy photo shoot or whatever. It's very candid and like her just in her house, or, you know, just really like human. And I really appreciate that kind of like connection with people, and especially in a professional sense. I think it creates this like, I don't know, like just normality around people's lives, which they are just normal people. And yeah, that's what I'd say.
I love that because you can tell when someone's just being a human and being real. And I think we're into the last 5 minutes now, so I'd love to take that notion to sort of bring the final question with Denai. I mean, you please do answer this as well, which is the title of the show. The success is a silent process. Protest, sorry. You know, big moments that you've had in your career, for example, getting signed, or other big things. You know, how important is it that some things are just for you? You don't have to, you know, you've just got the job or you've just got the project and you haven't even started on it yet. How important is it to either complete or to have some time to, because it's just yours. You're not putting it, it's not for the public sphere, you know?
Yeah, I think it's like a key way to exist is, and I think for your own happiness, I think you have to realize that your accomplishments for yourself and really aren't there for other people. And whenever I make anything, I always have to ask myself, remind myself that this has to be mine before it is anyone else's, you know? And I think when you are in a different, you know, realm and you're trying to make music in a way that people want you to make music, you can somehow like you fall short and it doesn't become fulfilling and you're searching for something that's not necessarily like you. So I think I always have to, like, for me, the most important thing is to be on that journey with myself, like Cynthia was saying, is like to acknowledge that, you know, I'm on my own personal journey. And I think that kind of like growth with myself, like outside of what everyone else is doing, is like, for me, the biggest means of like success is to realize that your story and your journey is so different from everyone else's. And it's important to be able to live through that for yourself. And I think, yeah, I think it's so easy to get sidetracked, and there's so much like, you know, a nature of like comparing yourself to other people and what everyone else is doing. Yeah, I think it's like ultimately just really important to just remind yourself that you're on your own journey and everyone else is also on their own journeys and therefore are in their different, you know, road to success. You know, I think that is like, to me, the ultimate kind of self-validation.
Well, we've got about 1 minute left. Cynthia, would you like to leave us on a final note?
Yes, one thing that Instagram's really good for is when you have artists like yourself, Denai, who literally just suddenly go on an Insta Live and start doing a little jam session in their homes, because you have so many DJs or just even artists who are in quite big bands who you'd never usually have access to, and they'll just do a little Insta Live with you in their kitchen playing. So that is a bonus. That's a plus of Instagram, I think.
Beautiful. Okay, guys. Well, we've got no time left, so I'm going to have to wrap it up. We'll put on the POW Instagram accounts. We will put the tags. They're already there, but we'll put them out for all of these lovely ladies' Instagram accounts if you want to follow them. And today's been a really insightful, honest, and beautiful chat. I think some of the main things that we've highlighted is there's a lot of good to the platform, but let's just see it for what it is. Being a positive, well-balanced, mentally healthy mindset before going in to the online social media platform. Use it as a tool mentality. Do put your work out there, because it could open up new opportunities that you'd never have access to before. And if you see a social injustice or a global movement that you want to be part of it, use it as an identification tool, but also you have to do the work behind it. Thank you all so much for your time today. I've really enjoyed listening to every word. And thank you to everybody who's listened. And thank you, POW Thanet, for letting us talk today. Namaste. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.